Hi, today it's Alex Sura from Thaddeus Stevens College talking to you about the art of spring winding. So spring winding is something that isn't done too terribly often anymore on a individual basis. Typically it's going to be done with a spring winding machine. However, if you end up working at a place where they create springs, or if you're ever in a pinch because you lost one, or you need to make a machine work, making a spring can really save the day. So our objectives today is we're going to learn the terminology associated with coil springs. We are going to learn the formulas required for creating a spring mandrel. We're going to learn all the formulas required for figuring out all the other aspects of a spring. And we're going to learn how to use an engine lathe to wind springs and how to properly terminate the spring with different ends. Why can't we just buy one? And we always get that question. Well, you can. Okay, you can head off to McMastercard, whoever else, and buy a spring. But what if there's a specialty spring that you need where there's different ends that aren't available? What if you don't like the pull that a specific spring has, but you have a lighter gauge wire available? You can make a spring that's going to suit your needs. So just like anything else, yeah, it's a lot easier to buy one. However, there's a lot of benefits in having the knowledge to create something like this. Spring terminology, we're not gonna get too crazy about this today, but the free length of a spring, whether it's an extension spring, which would be something like this, similar to a screen door spring, just to keep it simple. So this one's going to always pull back. So the free length would be from the outside, from the ends of those open loops, okay? And the length of the body of the spring is right here. So when we're doing our calculations, we're going to be looking at that for an extension spring. What our project is for my class is creating a spring-loaded tap center. So we're going to be creating a compression spring, much like a valve spring for an engine, something like that, where it's going to always be pulling or pushing against itself or out. So the free length is going to be off of these ends. Okay. The outside diameter, we're looking at the outside of that spring, inside diameter, the inside of the wires. You'll notice a lot of these terms where we're looking at the pitch and the size of the material of the spring, we start really almost looking like thread terminology when we have outside and inside diameters. But it's spring, obviously. So how are we going to make this? So if we need to figure out the number of wraps of a spring, we're going to take the closed length of our spring divided by the wire size. The length of the piano wire required, we're going to take the circumference of our spring times the number of wraps. And remember, circumference is pi times diameter. And then if we wanted to figure out the pitch, the distance between our wraps, we're going to take our open length divided by the number of wraps. And all of these would be for a compression spring, not an extension spring. How do we figure out what size arbor? So we need some sort of form to create our spring with. So we're going to take our arbor size, and we're going to take our outside diameter of our spring minus 2 times our spring wire minus 20%. And you might be like, well, why? How do you know? Well, those are always good questions to ask. So the 2 times W is because here is one diameter of our wire, and then here is the second one. So if we take the outside diameter of our spring minus 1 wire minus 2 wire, we get our inside. But spring wire is springy. Yeah, I did. Sorry. So what's going to happen here is we're going to have to make our arbor smaller than the desired inside diameter so that when it's done being wrapped and it relaxes, it's the actual correct OD that we're looking for. So the easier formula is what we're going to do. It's the same exact thing. I'm just simplifying it a bit for you. If you do OD minus 2 times W times 0.8, that's going to give you the same thing, like subtracting it from 20% or multiplying by 0.8. That's going to give you that formula. That's going to give you that inside diameter or the mandrel size that you want. When you're creating your mandrel, make sure to leave enough for a few extra wraps and enough at one end to hold it in your 4-jaw chuck. Okay. And then we also could drill a hole through the mandrel so that we can stick the spring wire into it, and that's going to hold it. If you don't do that, say you have a really tiny mandrel, you could always tuck it under one jaw of the lathe chuck, tighten it up to hold on to it. How do we set it up? Well, we're going to place the mandrel in the lathe with a live center to support the other end. We're going to cut off the proper length of spring wire so that we don't have to so we have a little extra to finish off the spring and everything, but we want to make sure we don't have way too much. And we use needle pliers and a piece of brass, and we're going to set the pitch of the wires with a steel rule. So this is my piece of brass here, and I measure from here to here. That's going to be my desired pitch. And that's going to, I'm going to just hold on to that, and the piece of brass is going to, I'm just going to drag it along, and it's going to form exactly what I want on my. So how do we do it? We're going to set the lathe to the lowest speed. Reverse is actually the easiest way to get it to wrap nice. We're going to ensure there's no wire tangled around you or your appendages. And we turn the lathe on and we keep the brass tight against the last piece of spring we wound. And we're going to kind of pull down on those needle pliers so that it like pulls the mandrel properly and it stretches the wire around. And right at the end, we're going to turn it off so we don't get that loose tail where it whips out at the end. That can really cause some cuts. And then we're going to just cut our spring to the specified length using cutters of the pliers. And then we can always make those rounded ends on extension springs if we need to. Coils or compression springs, we just clip it off to the ends we want, and sometimes even surface ground so that they have the nice flat ends we're looking for. So I hope you learned a lot about springs today, and have a great day.